So let's take a look at the R121 emulation from UA. And first we're going to listen to the R121. Alright, so on the clean guitar here, I'm hearing a little bit more top end on the emulation and a little bit more bottom around 200 or so on the original 121. Let's take a look at the overdrive. Alright, so the L22 has a ton more top end than the R121 has in this case. Now let's take a look at a heavy distorted guitar. Okay, to my ears, this is just plain wrong. There's just way too much top end here, and it sounds nothing like my 121 or any other 121 I've ever used. And what I did here was bounce this down using the plugin to essentially commit the 121 emulation, and now I'm going to try and do an EQ match using Q3. Q3 has the EQ match function that you can feed in one track to try to match another one, and this is exactly what I was hearing before. There's a little bit missing at a 200, and I have no idea what's going on up in the top end here. Yeah, this is just a little ridiculous. So now let's apply this to the emulation and see if we can get any closer to my 121 to the emulation 121. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's a lot closer than this. Now, this same EQ curve can apply to anything at this point. So now let's take a look at the overdrive guitar and the original 121. Now versus this. So on the clean guitar, the tonal difference wasn't as apparent as it is in the distorted and the overdrive guitars, but let's take a look at what the EQ curve does to this now. Now the original. Now, I suppose it is possible that my 121 is a little tired from years and years of use, but I don't think it's that far off from the original sound, and I do remember this mic being pretty warm sounding and rounded on the top end. It's never sounded that shrill to me, so I'm going to assume that the emulation is just a little off here. So I'd like to take a minute here to show a technique that was brought to us by one of our viewers, Mark Gerton. Big shout out to him for showing us this. It's a way to do a mid-side recording using a single UA or Townsend sphere microphone. Okay, what we have here is a drum set that was mic'd about 3 or 4 feet away from the kit, about 4 feet high, or a little above the tom level. And the mic is set up to record in stereo. So the way you do that with the sphere microphone is you set the capsule at 90 degrees off axis from the source that you're pointing it at. Let's take a quick listen to what the drums sound like in standard stereo mode. So we're not getting a lot of room sound out of this since the drums were recorded in a smaller room and the room was deadened, as that's the sound that the engineer was going for this project. That it's a balanced sound and everything can be heard pretty clearly. And this is the drums using the 180 version of the plugin. Now let's set this up for mid-side. First, what we're going to do is duplicate the track. Since I want to A-B this, I'm going to duplicate this twice. Normally you only have to do one since you only need 2 to do mid-side. We're also going to create a stereo bus that we're going to put our mid-side matrix on. We're just going to assign this to the drum bus so we can hear it, as that's how I'm recording this at the moment. Now we're going to take the plugins and change them from the 180 to the normal sphere plugin. The first instance of the plugin we're going to set to Omni, and we're going to actually use the off-axis correction here to give a perfect polar pattern. And I'm going to use the 87 vintage model here. You can use whatever mic model that you'd like to, whatever sound fits the bill. Now the second instance we're going to set to figure 8, and we're going to use the off-axis correction for this again. Going back to the first instance, I'm going to add a little bit of the proximity effect to give a little more thump to the kick drum. And we're going to send these 2 channels to the bus that we created. And on our bus here, we're going to add the Goodhertz mid-side matrix. And we're going to set the input to mid-side. You can leave everything else for now. And I'm going to group these so that I can A-B them a little bit easier. Okay, let's solo this and see what the drums sound like now. And of course I forgot to pan the mid to the left and the side to the right. So let's just do that. So back to the original stereo recording. And now this is the mid side, and we notice that's a little bit louder, and that's because we have 2 instances of the same source, so we're going to get a 6 dB boost. So I'm just going to take this down 6 dB on each channel here. And we should be about gain matched. And we can hear that it sounds a little bit different. The original stereo sounds a little more focused, and the mid-side sounds a little bit more spaced out or wide. And the cool thing is we can push this out as wide as we want to, and it'll still collapse into mono perfectly since we're using the mid-side technique. And the mind-blowing aspect of this is that we're using a single mic to do this, and Using the traditional method, there's no way to get a perfect mid-side because you have to use two different microphones, and you can never get the capsules exactly lined up. But since we're using the sphere mic, the capsule is exactly in the same spot for both of the instances for the mid and the side. And again, I want to give a big shout out to Mark Gerton for showing us this technique, and hopefully this will help somebody else make some great stereo recordings.